My son's girlfriend switched my 78-year-old grandma's heart medication with placebos to cause fatal heart attack. I'm cardiologist who caught her. My son's girlfriend Amber systematically replaced my 78-year-old grandmother Dorothy's critical heart medications with placebo pills over 4 months, trying to cause a fatal heart attack so my son would inherit grandma's $5.8 million estate faster. Grandma had severe coronary artery disease and took 5 different cardiac medications daily to prevent heart attacks: blood thinners, beta blockers, ACE inhibitors, statins, antiarrhythmics. Without these medications, Grandma would likely suffer a major cardiac event within weeks. Amber researched which pills look similar to Grandma's prescriptions. She bought vitamin pills and over-the-counter supplements that matched in size and color. She'd visit Grandma weekly, offering to help organize her medications. During these visits, she'd secretly switch the real pills with fake ones. Grandma had no idea she was taking ineffective pills. She trusted Amber completely. By month 3, Grandma was experiencing chest pain, shortness of breath, irregular heartbeat. She was heading toward a massive heart attack. When I examined her, I found her cardiac biomarkers were elevated and her EKG showed dangerous changes. But what confused me was that these changes shouldn't happen if she was taking her medications properly. I asked to see her pills, and when I tested them, I discovered they weren't her prescriptions at all. Someone had replaced her life-saving medications with worthless placebos. I knew immediately this was attempted murder, and I suspected Amber, who'd been visiting frequently. I set a trap using marked pills and caught Amber on hidden camera switching medications. She'd been systematically trying to kill my grandmother to speed up inheritance. But I'm Dr. Stephen Martinez, 49 years old, a cardiologist with 27 years of experience. I knew exactly what Amber had done and how to prove it. I documented everything medically and worked with police to build a prosecution case. This is the story of how my son's girlfriend tried to murder my grandmother through medication tampering, and how I used my cardiology expertise to catch her, get her convicted of attempted murder, send her to prison for 21 years, and save Grandma's life. My grandmother, Dorothy Martinez, was 78 years old in 2023 and had significant heart disease. She'd had 2 heart attacks in her 60s. She'd had bypass surgery. She had multiple stents. Her heart function was compromised, and she required careful management with multiple medications to stay alive. But with proper medication and care, she had good quality of life. She lived independently. She was mentally sharp. She managed her own home and finances. Grandma was wealthy from her late husband's successful business. She owned her home in Phoenix, worth $2.3 million. She had investments worth $3.5 million. Total estate, approximately $5.8 million. Her will left everything split equally between her 3 children, including my father, which meant eventually her grandchildren, including me, would inherit portions. Amber knew about this inheritance, and she wanted to accelerate it. My son Marcus was 32 years old and had been dating Amber Rodriguez for 18 months. Amber was 29. She worked in pharmaceutical sales, which is relevant because she had access to medical knowledge and medication samples. Marcus was serious about Amber and had talked about marriage. Our family had welcomed Amber. She seemed nice enough, though I always sensed something calculating beneath her friendly surface. What none of us knew was that Amber had researched our family finances thoroughly. She knew about Grandma's estate. She knew that when Grandma died, my father would inherit approximately $1.9 million. She knew that when my father eventually died, Marcus would inherit that money. Amber decided she couldn't wait decades for natural inheritance. She decided to speed things up by killing Grandma. In February 2024, Amber started visiting Grandma weekly. She'd offered to help with shopping and errands. She'd bring meals. She'd spend time chatting. Grandma appreciated the attention from Marcus's girlfriend. She told me during our regular phone calls that Amber was such a sweet girl and how lucky Marcus was. I was glad they were bonding. I had no idea Amber was planning murder. What Amber was really doing during these visits was studying Grandma's medication routine. She'd watch which pills Grandma took and when. She'd photograph the pill bottles when Grandma wasn't looking. She researched each medication to understand what it did and what would happen if Grandma stopped taking it. Amber worked in pharmaceutical sales, so she understood medications. She knew that Grandma's heart medications were literally keeping her alive. She knew that without them, Grandma would likely have a fatal heart attack within a month. That was exactly what Amber wanted. A death that would look natural for a 78-year-old woman with severe heart disease. Amber's plan was sophisticated. She couldn't just remove Grandma's medications because Grandma would notice empty bottles and get refills. Instead, Amber bought over-the-counter pills and vitamins that looked similar to each of Grandma's 5 cardiac medications. For Grandma's blood thinner, warfarin, which were small white tablets, Amber bought white calcium supplements of similar size. For Grandma's beta blocker, metoprolol, which were small pink pills, Amber found pink vitamin B12 tablets that matched. For each medication, Amber found plausible substitutes. She brought these fake pills in her purse during visits. She'd offered to help Grandma organize her pill organizer. Grandma would accept the help, grateful for assistance. While Grandma was in another room or distracted, Amber would empty the real medications from the bottles and replace them with her fake pills. She'd take the real medications with her and dispose of them. Over the course of March 2024, Amber replaced all 5 of Grandma's cardiac medications with ineffective substitutes. Grandma had no idea. The pills looked right. They were in the correct bottles. Grandma took them faithfully every day, thinking she was taking her prescriptions. In reality, she was taking vitamins and supplements that did nothing for her heart disease. By April 2024, the effects of missing cardiac medications became apparent. Grandma started experiencing chest pain, which she described as pressure and tightness. She had episodes of shortness of breath. She felt fatigued constantly. She noticed her heart racing irregularly. These are all signs of worsening heart disease when someone isn't taking their medications properly. Grandma called me concerned about these symptoms. I told her to come to my office immediately for evaluation. When I examined her, I was alarmed. Her blood pressure was dangerously high at 180 over 110, when it should have been controlled around 120 over 80 with her medications. Her heart rate was irregular. Her lungs had crackles indicating fluid buildup from heart failure. I did an EKG, which showed ST segment changes, suggesting cardiac ischemia. I did blood work, which showed elevated troponin and BNP, indicating her heart was under severe stress. Grandma was in the early stages of a heart attack. She needed immediate intervention. I admitted Grandma to the hospital coronary care unit. We started her on IV medications to stabilize her heart. We did cardiac catheterization, which showed one of her stents had significant blockage. We placed a new stent and got her stabilized, but I was confused about why this was happening. Grandma should have been protected by her medications. Her heart disease had been stable for years with proper medication management. This acute deterioration didn't make sense unless something had changed with her medications. I asked Grandma if she'd been taking her pills regularly. She insisted she took them every single day, exactly as prescribed. She was always compliant. I asked if anything had changed with her pills. She said no, same medications, same doses, but something was wrong. Her symptoms didn't match someone taking proper cardiac medications. I asked Grandma to bring all her pill bottles to the hospital so I could verify what she was taking. When I examined the bottles, I noticed something odd. The pills inside didn't look quite right. Grandma's warfarin should have been manufactured by a specific company with specific markings. These pills had no markings. They looked generic. I took samples of each medication and sent them to the hospital pharmacy for analysis. The results came back shocking. None of the pills were what the bottles claimed. The warfarin bottle contained calcium carbonate. The metoprolol bottle contained vitamin B12. The lisinopril bottle contained vitamin C. The atorvastatin bottle contained fish oil capsules. The amiodarone bottle contained magnesium supplements. Every single medication had been replaced with worthless, over-the-counter supplements. Grandma had been taking vitamins thinking they were her life-saving heart medications. Someone had deliberately sabotaged her treatment. This was attempted murder through medication tampering. I called the police immediately. I explained that someone had replaced my grandmother's cardiac medications with placebos. This caused her to develop acute heart failure and nearly die from a heart attack. Whoever did this knew exactly what they were doing because they chose substitute pills that looked similar enough not to raise suspicion. This required medical knowledge. I suspected Amber because she worked in pharmaceutical sales and had been visiting Grandma regularly. Police Detective Maria Rodriguez took my report seriously and opened a criminal investigation. Meanwhile, I got Grandma back on her proper medications. Within days, her symptoms improved dramatically. Her chest pain resolved, her blood pressure normalized, her heart rhythm stabilized. The improvement proved that the medication tampering had caused her acute deterioration. If she'd gone even another week or two without real medications, she likely would have had a massive fatal heart attack. Amber's murder plan had nearly succeeded. I went to visit Grandma's house to investigate how the tampering had occurred. I found several of Grandma's original medication bottles in her bathroom trash can. They'd been emptied but not disposed of properly. I retrieved them as evidence. I also installed hidden security cameras throughout Grandma's house, focusing on areas where medications were stored. I told Grandma I was installing cameras for her safety after the medication incident. She agreed. I didn't tell her I suspected someone was coming back to tamper with medications again. I wanted to catch them in the act. I refilled Grandma's prescriptions, but I also marked each real pill with invisible ink that would show under UV light. If someone switched the pills again, I'd be able to prove it by checking whether the marked pills were gone. 3 days after I installed cameras and marked the pills, Amber visited Grandma. I was watching the live feed remotely from my office. I watched Amber chat with Grandma for 30 minutes. Then Amber offered to help Grandma organize her medications. Grandma handed Amber the pill organizer. Amber went to the bathroom, where Grandma kept her medication bottles. I watched on camera as Amber opened her purse and took out a plastic bag filled with pills. She opened each of Grandma's prescription bottles. She dumped the real pills into her purse. She refilled the bottles with her fake pills from her bag. She carefully matched the quantities so the bottles didn't look empty. She put the bottles back on the shelf. The whole switch took less than 5 minutes. I had her on camera committing medication tampering. I called Detective Rodriguez immediately and told her to come to Grandma's house. I had video evidence of Amber switching medications. Police arrived while Amber was still at Grandma's house. They detained her and searched her purse. They found 3 of Grandma's prescription bottles filled with real cardiac medications that Amber had just stolen. They found plastic bags containing vitamin pills and supplements that Amber was using as substitutes. They found a notebook in Amber's car with notes about medication timing and effects. The notebook included entries like replaced all bottles March 12th, warfarin most critical. Without it should have stroke or cardiac event within 3 to 4 weeks. Beta blocker replacement will cause blood pressure spike and arrhythmia. Amber had documented her murder plot in writing. She'd researched exactly what would happen when she removed each medication. She knew she was causing potentially fatal cardiac events. This was premeditated attempted murder. Amber was arrested and charged with attempted murder, elder abuse, medication tampering, fraud, and conspiracy. The evidence against her was overwhelming. Video of her switching medications, the marked pills I'd planted were missing, and in Amber's possession, proving she'd stolen the real ones. Her notebook documenting the plot. The pharmacy analysis proving the medications had been replaced with worthless substitutes. My medical testimony about how the tampering caused Grandma's cardiac crisis. Grandma's dramatic improvement once back on real medications proving causation. Amber tried to claim she was just helping organize medications and made mistakes. But the video showed deliberate switching. Her notebook showed planning and knowledge of consequences. There was no innocent explanation. Amber's trial was in August 2024. I testified as both family member and expert cardiologist. I explained Grandma's cardiac condition in detail. I showed how she required 5 specific medications to prevent heart attacks. I explained what happens when patients with her condition stop taking medications. I showed how Amber's tampering caused Grandma's acute deterioration. I showed Grandma's medical records documenting the crisis and then the recovery. Once medications were restored, I presented the pharmacy analysis, proving every pill had been switched. I explained how this required medical knowledge to execute because Amber had to find substitute pills that looked convincing. The prosecution played the video of Amber switching medications. They showed her notebook with her research about medication effects. They showed the plastic bags of fake pills in her possession. They presented testimony from Marcus, my son, who was devastated to learn his girlfriend had tried to kill his great-grandmother. Marcus testified that Amber had talked about inheritance frequently and seemed frustrated about waiting for family money. The prosecution also uncovered Amber's financial motive. She had significant debt from shopping addiction. She owed $70,000 on credit cards. She'd been researching how to pay off debt quickly. She'd calculated that if Grandma died, Marcus would eventually inherit money years down the line. Amber had decided to accelerate the process. Her plan was to cause Grandma's death through medication, tampering, making it look like natural causes from heart disease. No one would suspect murder because Grandma was elderly with known cardiac issues. Amber thought she'd committed the perfect crime. She didn't account for me being a cardiologist who'd notice when symptoms didn't match proper medication management. Amber's defense tried to create doubt, but the evidence was overwhelming. The jury deliberated 4 hours. They convicted Amber on all charges, including attempted murder. Sentencing was September 2024. The judge was harsh. Ms. Rodriguez, you systematically attempted to murder a 78-year-old woman with severe heart disease by replacing her life-saving medications with worthless pills. You did this knowingly and deliberately. Your own notebook shows you researched which medication to target first and what effects removing it would have. You knew you were causing potentially fatal cardiac events. You did this motivated by greed for inheritance money. You exploited your position as your boyfriend's girlfriend to gain access to the victim. You exploited your pharmaceutical knowledge to execute a sophisticated murder plot. You nearly succeeded in killing Mrs. Martinez. She survived only because her grandson is a cardiologist who recognized something was wrong. Your crime shows extreme callousness and calculation. I am sentencing you to 21 years in state prison with no possibility of parole for 18 years. You will also pay restitution for medical expenses. You are permanently banned from working in healthcare or pharmaceutical fields. What you did was evil, and you will pay dearly for it. 21 years. Amber was 29. She'd be 50 at minimum before parole consideration. She destroyed her life trying to murder an elderly woman for money she'd never get. Marcus broke up with Amber immediately after her arrest. He was traumatized by what she'd tried to do. Grandma recovered completely and is now 79 years old, healthy and taking her medications properly. I installed a secure medication dispenser at her house that only I can refill. No one else has access to her medications. She's also installed comprehensive security cameras and changed all her locks. She's safe now. All the fake pills were disposed of and her prescriptions are carefully monitored. Amber is currently serving year 1 of her 18-year minimum sentence at Arizona State Prison Complex. She's written letters to Marcus begging forgiveness and claiming she never meant to actually kill anyone. Every letter has been returned unopened. There is no forgiveness for trying to murder someone's great-grandmother. Amber made calculated choices over months to execute this murder plot. She researched medications, bought substitute pills, kept detailed notes about her crimes, showed no remorse until court. She deserves every year of that 21-year sentence. When she's released, she'll be 50 years old with a felony murder conviction. She'll never work in healthcare or pharmaceuticals again. She destroyed her life completely. I've used Amber's case in cardiology conferences to teach about medication non-compliance versus medication tampering. I explain how to recognize when symptoms don't match expected medication response, how to verify patients are actually taking prescribed medication medications, not substitutes. How to secure medications for vulnerable patients. If Amber's crime can help even one doctor detect similar tampering, then something educational came from Grandma's nightmare. I've also worked with Arizona legislators to pass stronger laws about medication tampering. Penalties are now enhanced when tampering targets elderly patients with life-threatening conditions. These laws will protect vulnerable people from predators like Amber. This is my story. I'm Dr. Stephen Martinez, 49 years old, cardiologist with 27 years of experience. My son's girlfriend Amber replaced my 78-year-old grandmother's 5 cardiac medications with worthless vitamins and supplements, trying to cause a fatal heart attack. Amber did this systematically over 4 months, documenting her plan in a notebook. Grandma nearly died before I figured out her medications had been tampered with. I tested her pills and found they'd all been replaced. I marked new pills and installed hidden cameras, caught Amber on video switching medications again. Police found marked pills in her possession and her murder notebook. Amber was convicted of attempted murder and sentenced to 21 years in prison. Grandma recovered completely and is healthy at 79. Amber destroyed her life, trying to commit what she thought was the perfect murder. She didn't account for her boyfriend's father being a cardiologist who'd recognized medication tampering. Justice was served completely.